tackle about pricing strategies and also the various factors that can affect in setting the prices. Set a price, you should see to it that it is low enough to gain enough sales. However, at the same time, you should also see to it that it is high enough to guarantee the flow of funds that is required to cover all the expenses. Now let us talk about the potential obstacles in international pricing. There are various factors that can make pricing more complex internationally than domestically. First factor is the government intervention. So this means that the government plays a role in setting up prices. In every country, there are laws like price controls that affects the prices of goods. We have minimum prices. So these are the prices that are set to prevent companies from eliminating competitors and gaining monopoly positions or simply to maintain an industry. We also have the maximum prices. These are prices that are set so that consumers or poor consumers can buy products and services. Anti-dumping regulation of the World Trade Organization, it permits countries to establish restrictions to any import entering price below cost. So when we say price below cost, this is the price of a product or service that is less than the cost of producing it. There are many reasons why companies or some companies wish to sell below its cost. First, they want to induce customers to try a product, and also they may be testing the market. The second factor is market diversity. When we say market diversity, it is a place where there are different people who are involved in buying and selling of products. Relating it to setting of prices, domestically, there are different segments, and prices are set differently in each segment. Internationally, there is a much even more natural segments. For example, a company from Philippines sell a product to Japan at any price, and the latter can sell it or export it to South Korea at any price as well. Now let us talk about pricing tactics, or in other words, pricing strategies. According to what I have searched, there are 5 strategies that are used. First one is the competitive pricing. This is setting a price that is based on what the competition charges. The second one is the value-based pricing. It is setting of a price that is based on how much the customer believes of what you're selling is worth. The next 3 that I will mention are the most commonly used in a near monopoly situation. First is the scheming strategy or the price scheming strategy. This is charging a high price for a new product by aiming first at consumers willing to pay that much, then progressively lowering the price to sell to other consumers. Next is penetration strategy or penetration pricing. This is setting a low price to enter a competitive market and raising it later. This is through introducing a product at a low price to induce a maximum number of consumers to try it. The last one is the cost plus strategy or cost plus pricing. This is simply calculating your costs and adding a markup. Third factor is the export price escalation. Setting prices is being affected by this factor if standard markups occurs within distribution channels. The longer the channel, the higher the expenses, then the higher the price. Since exporting products will have to undergo different distribution channels, then each channel should be paid. Meaning, the longer the products will undergo different channels, then there would be a higher expenses to be spent or paid. If there is a higher expenses, there would be a higher price to set. Since when setting a price, you have to see to it that the price set should be high enough to cover expenses. Example is country A is exporting a product to country B. The price of or the cost of production in country A is $1 and the selling price is $1.50. Since the product will be exported to country B, then it will have to undergo different distribution channels. First is the ship that will export to country B. Since the product will be exported through the ship, country A will have to pay a transportation cost of $0.25. Before the product will arrive to country B, it has to undergo the tariff wall. And again, country A will have to pay the cost of $0.15. Then the product will arrive to country B with an importer's cost of $1.90 and a selling price of $2.85. As you can see, there is a higher selling price in country B than country A. This is because the product has underwent different channels, and those channels are paid by country A. Since there is a higher expenses, then it is just right to have a higher price in country B to cover all the expenses. The following are the reasons why price escalation in export sales occur. First one is that channels of distributions usually include additional intermediaries because exporters need to contract with organizations that know how to sell in foreign markets. For example, a company from the Philippines exports a product to South Korea, and that Philippine company will look for intermediaries or additional intermediaries like organizations that will sell or knows how to sell their products to South Korea. The second reason is that tariffs and transports are added costs that may be passed on to consumers. The fourth factor is fluctuation in currency value. For companies that are accustomed to operating in one stable currency, pricing in a highly volatile currencies can be extremely troublesome. That is why managers should set a price that will ensure the company's funds to replenish its inventory and still make a profit. If not, then it is like making a paper profit while liquidating itself. This means that what shows on a paper as a profit may result from failure to adjust for inflation while the merchandise is in stock. The following are the pricing problems due to inflationary conditions. First, the receipt of funds in a foreign currency that when converted by less of the company's own currency than had been expected. In this case, companies can sometimes specify an equivalency in some hard currencies in sales of contracts, and this would depend on the competitive and the governmental regulation. An example would be a Philippine company has a sale to a company in South Korea. The first company may specify that payment may be made in Philippine peso or in won at an equivalent price in terms of peso at the time of payment. The second pricing problem is the frequent readjustment of prices necessary to compensate the continual cost increases. In this case, the frequent increase in prices may hamper the ability to quote prices in letters or catalogs, or even what the company wants would otherwise prefer for distribution. Changes in the value of currency can also affect the pricing decisions of any product that has a potential foreign competition. For those who sell similar goods in multiple countries, price differences among them must not exceed the cost of bringing the goods in from a lower priced country, or spillover in buying may occur or will occur. Now let us talk about the gray market or product diversion. This is actually about the selling and handling of goods through unofficial distributors. If there is an authorized selling, then it can undermine the long-term viability of distributorship system. It can induce a company's operations in different countries to compete with each other, and it can prevent companies from charging what the market will bear in each country. The fifth factor is the fixed versus variable pricing. Most often, MNEs negotiate their export prices with importers. Small firms, especially from those developing countries, frequently give price concessions too quickly. Due to this, they are limiting their ability to contract or to negotiate on a range of marketing factors on or that affects their cost. When we say price concessions, it is the adjustment of price agreed to in the letter of intent. It occurs during or after due diligence but not after the closing of transactions. Typically, these adjustments are reductions of the purchase price. However, they may also be increases. The following are price concessions: discounts for quantity or repeat orders, deadlines that increase production or transportation cost, credit and payment terms, services, supply of promotional materials, and training of sales personnel and customers. The reason why exporters export their product is for them to sell their products abroad or in a foreign market. The key factor of selling their product profitably is pricing. MNEs and other veteran exporters have learned that negotiating prices is an effective way of considering all the factors that should go into pricing decisions. This is both for their own and those of their importers' partners. Next is how to negotiate import-export prices. The goal is to delay a pricing commitment while discussing a whole package of other commitments. Consider yourself as the exporter. If the importer's reaction is that your offer is too expensive, then the following should be your response. First is ask what is meant by too expensive by the importer. Then find out what is considered acceptable and in what basis. Then you should respond by providing justification of the price you have offered. Next, you should avoid lowering your price until you earn more about what the other party is looking for. You should also find out if the objection is due to your price offer or if there is other factor that has reflected. And then ask yourself, if I'm too expensive, why are they negotiating with me? If the reaction of the importer is, we don't have that kind of budget, then the following would be your response. Find out how large the budget is and for what time frame. Explore whether your offer can fit within the overall budget by combining several budget lines. Propose preferred payment schedules. Confirm the order and postpone deliveries until a new budget is allocated. Split your order into smaller units or mini orders to meet the current budget or limitations. If the importer's reaction is that that's not what we are looking for, then the following will be your responses. Ask on what they are looking for and insist specifics. Keep questioning until you understand the real needs and repackage your offer in light of the new information received. Last is, if the importer's reaction is that your offer is not competitive, then the following will be your response. First, ask what is meant by not competitive. Find out if competitors' offers are comparable to yours. Find weaknesses in other offers and emphasize your strength. Reformulate your offer by avoiding direct comparison with competition. Stress the uniqueness features of your product or services. Some people avoid price negotiation even though they know that they might gain economically by doing so. This is because they fear the loss of face. They fear of being perceived as too aggressive or too poor. Other explanation says that they don't want to take time and they prefer to develop long-term relationships that bargaining might upset. Regardless of cost, there is a substantial variation in whether, where, and for what products consumers bargain in order to settle on an agreed price. Now we finally came down to the last factor affecting the setting of prices, and that is supplier relations. Dominant companies with clout can get suppliers to offer lower prices, thereby gaining cost advantages over competitors. In this sense, when a company that is dominant here and find a supplier that offers lower prices and would result in a lower cost, then the price that will be set will be affected. It's either low or high enough to cover the expenses spent, but they may lack this clout in foreign market because of not being dominant there. The internet is also causing more companies to compete for the same business, especially for sales of largely undifferentiated materials. Thus, many industrial buyers claiming large price decreases through internet buying. However, sellers can improve their positions by negotiating and combining the internet with face-to-face interaction.